Hi, I'm Everett Walk, senior at Montpelier High School. Thank you all for showing up today. 6 years ago, our state passed the Global Warming Solutions Act to hold our government accountable in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in line with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This year, the GWSA has been threatened. The governor's climate proposal, introduced as House Bill H289, would gut the GWSA and remove the ability for Vermonters to hold the state accountable to take needed action on climate change. Instead, the governor wants to spend resources and time making a new climate management plan when we already have the Climate Action Plan with hundreds of recommendations to increase Vermont's resilience, adaptation, and mitigation strategies. We will no longer be able to hold our state accountable, and we will have to wait idly by for a year and a half for yet another plan. How can we trust that? We will not wait through a whole term for a new plan. This is our future, and I'm deeply saddened that the hard work of the youth lobby has been threatened by this proposed legislation. This won't go away just by ignoring it, and if we wait any longer, it will be too late. We won't wait. Thank you for showing up.
Hi, my name is Leila McCann, and I'm a junior at U32 Middle and High School. I'm originally from Northern California, and in 2017, when I was 9 years old, the Tubbs Fire burned, the most destructive wildfire in California history at the time. The fire burned primarily in my county and the counties surrounding it. After a day or two, schools and businesses were shut down because of the bad air quality. Hundreds of people in and around my community were evacuated, and my family spent days locked inside our house with tape over the cracks in the doors and windows to keep the smoke from coming through. Then there was one day when the sky was so full of smoke that the sun never rose, and the world stayed black all day long. It was just people fear, no tomorrow. I wasn't sure if or when I would see the sun again. This was terrifying to witness, not only because of the way the sky looked, but because it proved everything I was learning about the climate crisis in school. Here it was, in my face, impossible to ignore. When my family moved to Vermont to escape California's relentless fires and summer temperatures above 120 degrees, I joined my school's environmental club. From there, I was introduced to all of the climate bills and organizations working in the state. And everyone can imagine the comfort that I felt in this. This is a place that made promises to us. If not, everything's going to be okay, at least we're working on it, and you can join us. One of the most important pieces of climate legislation that the state has passed is the Global Warming Solutions Act, a promise to reduce emissions and pave the way for similar acts on a national and global level. The law was fought for in part by members of the youth lobby in 2020, who knew what promises they deserved. Fast forward to 2025, Representative Mark Higley has introduced a bill to repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act because Vermont is not on track to hit its emissions for 2025 and does not want to face the consequences for this. So many of us have witnessed the effects of the burning planet, not just me on the day when the sun never came up. And through hard work of so many in Vermont, the state has promised to help us and promised to do their part. And now it is more key than ever that we gather and make sure legislators don't go back on their promises. Some legislators say it's too costly to continue implementing the Global Warming Solutions Act, and I believe it is too costly for us not to take action. At my school and in my community, I try my best to be the climate leader and inspire others to do the same. I try to make conscious choices about the way I live and ask the same of other people. And I've done my best to help plan and lead the rally for 2 years in a row. But inside, there's still the scared 9-year-old girl who pleaded for help and her future on the day when smoke consumed her world. We've not just promised me, we promised her and the millions of other little children out there who are affected by the neglect and ignorance of the adults before them. They need the adults to make promises like the Global Warming Solutions Act and fight to keep those promises, not to say it's too costly or it's nearly impossible. Otherwise, what does the youngest generation learn? To be afraid of the dying earth? To hate humans for the destruction they've created? Or never to keep their promises either? Repealing the Global Warming Solutions Act means breaking the promises to 600,000 people in Vermont, including the little children who have nothing to do about it. It's telling them that giving them a future is not in lawmakers' interest. Why not just say to these little children that you're happy for them to lose their lives? Many of us wish to tell legislators that the cost of the Global Warming Solutions Act is feasible for the work that it will do. And then there are those who do act upon these wishes, but wishes remain wishes until we put them into action. And the truth is that the cost of our inaction is the greatest price of all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harmony Beldivo. I'm a member of Youth Lobby and the State Youth Council, and I'm in 10th grade at Harwood Union High School. The terms clean energy, climate crisis, and climate science are being removed from federal government documents. This demonstrates deliberate ignorance from the federal government. We cannot allow Vermont to be a state that ignores the environment and climate. We cannot comply with these trends in the current federal government. We need to remain a brave little state that knows and acts upon what is best for Vermonters' futures. If the Global Warming Solutions Act is repealed, Vermont will not be demonstrating accountability because this act keeps Vermont in line with the Paris Climate Accord. If we don't follow through on our promises, which we haven't yet, the state can be sued and has begun to be. Instead of dismissing the issue by repealing the act, Vermont should continue being a climate leader for our country by meeting these goals. The goals outlined in the act are to limit the average global temperature increase to below 2 degrees Celsius and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees, to enhance resilience to climate impacts, and to align financial flows in the world with these objectives. Vermont needs to keep the Global Warming Solutions Act in place in order to protect Vermonters' futures and to remain an environmental leader in the country. The actions being taken federally are ignoring science. And if this act is repealed, Vermont would be following the footsteps of the current administration, which would put Vermonters and the land in great danger. Overall, in order to demonstrate respect for science, accountability, acknowledgement of climate change, care for Vermont youth, and the state's commitment to protecting Vermont's people and environment, please vote against repealing the Global Warming Solutions Act. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Quincy Sabick, and I'm a student at Virgins Union High School, and I'm also a youth representative on the Vermont Climate Council, but today I'm speaking as a member of Youth Lobby. The environment around me is something I was taught to protect from a young age. My mother worked in clean energy from my childhood, and my father has dedicated his life to preserving the history and natural resources of our state. Their commitment to building a sustainable, clean future for Vermont is something that I've always admired and hoped to someday live up to. I've been involved in advocacy for as long as I can remember, and I've always been inspired by the climate-forward approach taken by Vermont leaders. At the same time, I've seen firsthand the impacts of high taxes on my neighbors. I believe that these two issues must be addressed together. The Global Warming Solutions Act aims to address Vermont's carbon emissions in a way that prioritizes long-term solutions that are sustainable for our planet and take into account the difficulties of low-income Vermonters. It saddens and angers me to see Senate and House Republicans moving to change our existing policies in favor of quick fixes and vague future plans that will ultimately leave our state in debt in more ways than one. If action is taken to remove the existing climate legislation, the impact may not be felt today, tomorrow, or next year. Ultimately, it is not our current legislators and leaders who will feel the impact. It is their grandchildren. As an inheritor of this beautiful state, I cannot stand by and allow choices to be made that will further worsen the already catastrophic damage we have caused to our planet. It is necessary that we take into account the future of our state and not just our current pocketbooks. The climate crisis is not something that we can put a Band-Aid on or shove aside to prioritize other issues. It must be at the forefront of our decision-making now and going forward. To my state government, I ask you to look around today and understand that there are people who will be left with the consequences of your actions. And to my fellow youth, I ask you to educate yourself on the topic as much as possible. We are fighting an uphill battle, but not one that cannot be won. It is up to us to make choices that will rectify the damage done by our predecessors. I hope that today's display of unity and action can demonstrate to those in power that the youth of Vermont demand a say in climate action. We will not settle for plans that put off real action, and we are not fooled by your empty promises for change. Thank you.
My name is Lucy Badger, and I'm a senior at Harwood Union High School. Today, I am here to encourage our lawmakers to hold themselves accountable for the promises they have made to reduce Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions, which are contributing to the global atmospheric pollution that is having devastating effects on our communities, state, and planet. A few years ago, keeping climate promises was the moral thing to do. After President Trump pulled the United States out of the Paris Agreement in 2017, Governor Scott remained committed to Vermont's renewable energy goals of attaining 90% of its energy from renewables by 2050. He said he believed maintaining this commitment is the right action for the protection of our children, grandchildren, and future generations. Keeping Vermont on track for our renewable goals was the right thing to do, not only for keeping Vermont accountable for its emissions, but leading other states to do the same, creating a greater impact from those committed to a cleaner planet. This is vital to controlling the impact of climate change, as even though the United States has less than 5% of the world's population, it has contributed 20% of the world's total emissions over the past century. Vermont is not on target for meeting these goals. And now, instead of working towards them, Governor Scott has gone back on his word, calling the targets both arbitrary deadlines and too expensive for Vermont to meet. Neither of these claims are true. The deadlines are not arbitrary, but what has been established by scientists for the world to have a chance of staying below the target of 2 degrees Celsius, a point which will have devastating effects on the planet worldwide. These deadlines, if the world works together, will reduce emissions and lessen the impact of climate change. This expense, now less than what was originally projected, is not only an investment, but a way to avoid the much greater expenses of cleaning up the damage of flooding and the later rebuilding of Vermont's homes and businesses. We are at a crucial point in time. Our president is working to slow any progress at the federal level by mass firings of environmentally conscious organizations such as NOAA, freezing funding, withdrawing the United States from climate agreements, and to keep drilling for oil. We can no longer sit back. Responsibility is quickly shifting to the states to protect and accelerate our progress in fighting climate change. Working for a better climate is no longer just morally correct, it is now an urgent necessity. Vermont was once supposed to be one of the safest states from the impacts of climate change. After the devastating flooding throughout the state for the past 2 years, we know this isn't true. After the millions of federal dollars spent on flood cleanup and recovery, we know that there's a cost to our inaction. This cost isn't going to stop. It's just going to stop coming from the federal government and start coming directly from Vermonters, impacting affordability, which ironically is an important issue to Governor Scott. Yes, there are costs towards working for clean energy, but it is an investment in Vermont's homes and businesses and the futures of Vermont youth. And yes, the cost of doing nothing will continue to pile on and on as climate change worsens and has devastating effects on our communities, state, and planet. We can no longer push action down the road. We can no longer rely on the federal government for our future. Our legislators need to act now, vote to keep our climate goals, and keep pushing for climate-conscious legislation for Vermont to have a future. Thank you.